Hey everybody, this is Mace1370, and today we are going to showcase double Arbiter Vildred on the same account. Before we get into it though, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, please check the video description below for a link to my Discord. So I did a thing, and that thing is spending Moonlight coins to buy a second Arby, while he was still in the shop. So it's taking me a little while to get him molded up and everything, and geared and ready to go, but here he is. He now exists. So in this video we're going to go over having two Arby's on your account, how you would build both of them, if it's worth doing, what scenarios you might use both of these Arby's in, the pluses and minuses, to their different builds, and just kind of a general overview so you can determine if it might be worth it for you if you have a second Arbiter Vildred laying around, or if you ever pull a second one, or if he ever, rotates back again. So, it's obviously like a big resource commitment to do this, and there aren't many heroes that you really want a second one of. And out of all those heroes, I guess Arby's probably one of them. So here's my first Arby, and this is the one I've had for a while. He's on the very standard 240 damage build that a lot of people run, prioritizing attack, 100% crit, and then a decent amount of crit damage as well. The attack prioritization is to synergize with the greater attack from Alexa's basket. You want to get as much of a bonus from that as you can. His gear is pretty straightforward. It's basically just all offensive DPS stats. And this is, a type of Arby that you are going to, draft in like a cleave team or a hyper-aggressive team. And I think the one thing that, is a little bit different is that I put him on immunity. There are quite a few people that put Arby on immunity, but I'd say the majority of Arbys that I see that are damaged are not on immunity. The reason I run him on immunity is because I'm not a dedicated cleave player, and I kind of take this Arby as a pick of opportunity. So I take him, later on in the draft, like 4th or 5th, usually against an opponent that has kind of left themselves open to get gabbed. So that type of scenario is they have a bunch of squishy units on their team, and they have no way of dealing with Arby when he revives. And when he does come back, if he gabs, I just win the game because he wipes their team. In those scenarios, it's pretty frequent that I am not taking first turn. If you are the type of player that cleaves and takes first turn, you don't really need him on immunity because you're going to be able to CC or whatever, and then your Arby is going to get a turn, so you don't need the immunity to prevent them from stunning him. But I generally don't draft those types of teams. I just pick him right at the end, if they have like a Stenny and not very much mitigation or something like that, or a Landy. And in those scenarios, they sometimes have a unit that can go first, like Cerise. And if Cerise stuns him, then it's kind of GG for me. So I like running him on immunity for that reason. Another scenario I've run into a bunch is like Lilius, for example. If I draft Falconer Clury and then they have a Lilius, this immunity prevents Lilius from pushing Arby back, which can be pretty huge. So this is the standard Arby built on damage. This is a bruiser or tanky Arby. Some people call him a Degen, I guess, although other people think that's what you call a counter build. Either way, here he is. And for this Arby, my goals were to get him at 14k HP, and at least 170 speed, and then at least 1.1k defense. So I got him up to 1200, and then kind of beyond that I just wanted as much damage as I could get. So I got him close to crit chance, and then 260 in crit damage and 3815 attack. I wanted to kind of test this build and see if this was tanky enough. I wasn't sure if I would need more defense or not. I had another build I was gonna maybe try if this one wasn't tanky enough. You can see it here. It's this one. It's this 14k HP and 1400 defense, still at 170 speed, but you can see the damage goes down pretty significantly. Here was another option. I thought maybe 1360. This could be pretty close to 14, and here the damage isn't nearly as bad. The crit goes down to 94, so that's less ideal, I guess. But those are some options I was toying with. I wanted to test this one first though, because this definitely has the best offensive package of those. So if this is tanky enough, I think I'm good. I picked 14k HP because there's a bunch of true damage out there, like LR Crow, etc., and I didn't want him to just die to true damage. In terms of the speed, I picked 170 speed because I think this still makes him a threat, and he can't be ignored at this speed. I've seen some Arbys, especially the ones built on counter, that are almost at base speed, or at least that's how they feel, and they are so slow that you just never attack them, and they don't do any damage to you. You save them until the end, and then you kill them. And those types of players, I think they're drafting that type of Arby with the goal of just hoping that they Moonlight Dreamblade and counter you to death, which happens like maybe 1 out of every, 50 or 100 games or something. And when it happens to you, it feels absolutely horrible. When it happens to them, I guess they feel validated in their life choices, but for me, I want something that's more consistent than that, so I took, this route, and I think it's pretty decent. My reasoning for wanting a second Arby was so that I could have a Degen one, and I thought there were a couple places that I could use this type of build. One place I thought was maybe as a counter pick against cleave teams, so it was something that I could take from them so that they don't have access to Arby, and I can still have a viable unit I can use. Him being tanky means that they just couldn't S10 one-shot him right away. Another scenario I thought I could potentially use him would be, against a bruiser team that's doing a protect the one, protect the landy or protect the S10, and a team that is tanky enough that I don't think my damage Arby would just blow them up. In those scenarios, I think Degen could be better. For example, he could be better against a protect the Stenny team, because then the Stenny can't just soul burn and kill him right away. And then you could also pair him with heroes like Aras or Lilius, to pull him in and attack and, abuse the fact that his S1 does CR pushback and hits 2 units. I mean, his S1 is so strong. Everything about Arby's kit is loaded, obviously. So those were kind of my thoughts about how I wanted to draft him and use him. I've got a couple good games here. Was not able to get any games against Cleave, unfortunately, so that's something I'm still testing. It's kind of remarkable. It's preseason and you think everyone's cleaving, and then as soon as you want to test stuff against Cleave, nobody cleaves you. I guess that's just the way it goes. So let's go ahead and get into the games and see how these Arby's do. Okay, so here's game 1. I have pre-banned Fairy Tale Tenebria, and the opponent has pre-banned Last Rider Crow. They have first pick. And they go with the first pick of ML Tywin. I've seen this strategy, a fair bit, where the opponent will pre-ban an immunity buffer like LR Crow and then take the Tywin. I think it's a viable strategy to try to exploit, especially at lower ranks. A lot of players don't have, a ton of immunity buffers built up, and if you ban, the one they have like LR Crow and you take Tywin, then Tywin kind of becomes a must ban, for your opponent. I take Aras because he has immunity on his skill 2. And then I take Falconer Clury since, she's a good pair to Aras, and I kind of want to see how these two work together in, this meta. The opponent takes Red Ravi, which seems a little early to me. If you pick her early, you can be counterpicked pretty reliably by Blue Crow and Seaside Bellona. Also, the LR Crow is banned, so taking Seaside Bellona, I feel like could kind of punish the opponent a little bit. But we're not testing Seaside Bellona, we're testing Arbiter Vildred. They take Landy, and I think their plan here, I guess, was to take a unit that counters the other. So now they have both. So I think I could honestly take Blue Crow and Seaside Bellona here, and that would probably be fine. The Landy would do a good chunk of damage to the Blue Crow, but that would let him horse. He could then take out the Ravi pretty easily. And then Seaside Bellona would be able to knock out Landy from stealth with her passive. But since I'm thinking another option I could do would be to take Degen Arby here. He is tanky, so he's not going to get one-shot by Landy right away. I take General Purgus to complement him, since that'll give him an attack buff since he doesn't have Basket. The attack buff from General Purgus I think will go a long way. It'll also give me a nice CR boost against, Landy's AoE, and also Tywin's AoE. So he has 2 AoE units right there, and then if, Ravi ever uses her AoE, then that's another one. So the opponent takes interesting combination of Archdemon Mercedes and Maid. Have not seen a Maid for a while. So my plan is I'm going to just ban away the Archdemon Mercedes since she can't, counters my Purgus and Arby pretty hard. Don't want to deal with her. And then I take TM Lulu, since the opponent has Maid. My TM Lulu will, be able to extinct a unit. So I kind of did that for ban bait, and they took the bait, so they banned it. So Maid gives them some amount of sustain, you know, with her heal and the res buff. So I was a little worried about that, but you know, we have Degen Arby, so I think we'll be fine. The opponent is not running Guiding Light on Landy, which allows me to skill through the Flurry. Did not get the Provoke. I did get the Death Break though. So I could put up defense buff here. It's going to dispel off Flurry's defense break, unfortunately. But I have not a ton of sustain, and I'm going to be taking some damage here, so I did want to get the defense buff up. My Flurry gets stunned. And Tywin cleanses away the stun from the opponent. Ravi goes and counters into General Purgus, giving me a nice CR boost. And now Landy's going to go, giving me another CR boost. So you can see here, you know, I don't have mitigation. I do have a defense buff, but Rast does not have a mitigation artifact. He took a skill 3 there from Landy and a counterattack. He does have defense buff, but he's surviving pretty well. This was the stage at my testing where I was just kind of trying to get a feel of how tanky he would be and how reliably I could keep him alive. I was really hoping that I would have souls here to be able to soul burn this. That is not the case. Landy is blinded, so I ignore her for a turn, and I'm just going to go into Maid and try to get rid of the Maid. Splash into Landy and take her out. And that defense buff and shield from Roz is doing a lot of work on our Arby there. Also his immunity. So he cannot be locked down. Landy does get full stacks, which is a little awkward for us. Arby is still alive, so I'm going to go for the Landy again. This time I hit the Ravi. And I really wish I had been able to soul burn that Ras. So we're just going to go into the Maid and take her out because that's my opponent's source of sustain. I check my turn order here just to see what cooldowns are.
All right, let's do this.
And since I wasn't able to strip the Maid the previous turn, I assumed that she might be on ER, so I attacked the Tywin instead there to try to, you know, strip a buff off of him. So General Purgus is getting CC'd pretty hard, but his CR boost passive is doing some serious work here. So you can see with like the 170 speed, like my Arby is taking turns. Like he's not zooming, but he's not like one of those potato Arbys, you know, that you face that's on counter set. Alright, so Arby goes down. He's going to come back. No Gab, obviously, because, you know, we don't have basket. I think that's the thing I dislike the most about Moonlight Dreamblade is his revives do not feel as impactful. But that does allow us to take out the first Maid life and the Tywin. So now we can just kind of whittle the Maid down and ignore the Ravi to the best of our ability. Nice dual attack there from Purgus, and Maid goes down. And so now we can skill 2 with Ras into the Ravi, hopefully landing a defense break. So we get the defense break and then delete the Ravi.
It's my duty to keep my people safe.
Okay, this next game also features Degen Arby. I didn't start recording until about partway through. I didn't even realize I was going to take him until I got to the end. But I took Degen Arby here because the opponent has Spectre Tenebria, and I don't really have anything to give myself first turn, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get that, you know, given I wasn't sure what my opponent's last pick would be. So here I took the Degen Arby so that I have reach for the Spectenny, but I'm hoping that he is not tanky enough to be able to be, just popped by either the Spectenny or actually by the ML Lulu as well. So this is one advantage of the Degen, is that you don't have to ban the ML Lulu necessarily. So we start the the game here, and my Vivian does get first turn. I think this was a bit of a coin flip, but she does get first turn, outspeeding the ML Lulu, and that was pretty key. I'm able to get attack buff on my Arby and also 3-turn immunity on everybody. So I think the opponent looks at the CR bar here and sees that Arby is fairly to the back. And that's what good players do, is they notice if he's Degen or not just based on his place on the attack bar. So the opponent goes into Vivian instead. She is able to live the skill 3, but not the General Purgus skill 3. It is nice that ML Lulu is not able to kill her though, because that will prevent ML Lulu's cooldown from getting reset. Here I skill 3 with FCC, just to get damage onto the Spectenny. I just want to kill her ASAP. I also have Skill Null and now FCC Shield also on my Arbiter Vildred, so even though the opponent will have Soul Burn, I think that I should be okay here. So it looks like the opponent is just Soul Burning with Tywin to clear off the Skill Null. I think that's a pretty good play. It lets Spectenny, S3 into someone, and then I guess he's thinking his Tywin cooldown will hopefully be up by the time my immunity wears off, which I think is a fairly good bet considering that I have Landy. I'm going to CR boost my entire team. So we get to skill 3 with Landy here, and that almost kills the Spectre Tenebria. And now our Arby comes in and finishes the job, also wiping out ML Lulu and doing quite a bit of damage. And the opponent concedes. Alright, another game here. I have first pick and I pre-banned Basar. The opponent has pre-banned LR Crow. So I take Fallen Cecilia. I think that last game really showcased well, even though it was short, the advantages of taking Degen Arby just even in the draft phase, because it really lets you be more flexible with your bans, right? Like you can let through the ML Lulu, you can let through Spectenny. So I think that he's very valuable to have as a source of AoE damage in those scenarios when you need to reach S10 and they have a counter like ML Lulu ready. Because that ML Lulu was not even able to kill my Vivian, who is less tanky than Arby is, right? Even with Dingosorb. It's not close. So here the opponent has taken Blue Crow and General Purgus. So I take Cerise as a counter pick to the General Purgus. And then I take ML Tywin because they don't have a source of immunity yet, and one of them is banned out. He's also already taken Blue Crow, so if he takes like Aras or something, that's kind of limiting his damage options towards the end here. So it looks like he's thinking about taking Arby. He's flashing him. He takes Falconer Flurry. So that is a strong combo with, the Blue Crow. They're good together. And then he takes Mort, which is interesting. So I guess he's using the preseason to test Mort. So props to Cashberry Mari. I take Spectre Tenebria. I think she's a good pick here because she hides from the Flurry and she hides from the Crow. The opponent does not have a ton of AoE damage. He has General Purgus and then he has Mort's S3. Mort's S3 is not very impactful. And Spectre Tenebria's S1 will not trigger Mort's, Elbrus or counterattacks or whatever. She can also get pulled in with Cerise, who can potentially defense break into a Spectenny S1, who's probably just going to delete something. I'm trying to decide who else I want to take here, and I just decided to go with, Degen Arby to see how he would do. I don't really know if he's a great fit in this scenario. He's kind of just a generic AoE bruiser. I think that, if anything, he might be bad just because of the General Purgus. I have to ban the SSB here just because that gives him too much AoE reach into my Stenny. I did want to test and see how Degen Arby would work with Cerise because she could pull him in, but the Cerise got banned, so that didn't work out. Alright, so the opponent's Falconer Clary goes first. He gets to pick if he wants to lock down FCC, Taiwan, or Arby. So he goes for FCC, so he's going to try to, nuke down my mitigation. Luckily, I resist the defense break. I debate about skill 3 in here for damage, but I kind of didn't want to give them the CR push. So I just go ahead and attack into the Falconer Clary, and I get morted. And he puts up crit resist on the team. I kind of feel like, Mort was obviously pretty underwhelming. The one-turn crit resist feels a little weak. This was something I think I talked about actually back in the Mort debut, but that procs, and then half the time your team takes a turn before the enemy team does, and so it does literally nothing. Here you can see Mort's going, so the crit resist buff on him does nothing, and then Blue Crow is going to go, so the crit resist buff on him is going to do nothing. So it'll still be on Flurry and Purgus, I guess, so it's nice, but if it was 2 turns, then I feel like you might get more value out of it. I'm not sure if that would be OP or not.
Kiss my feet.
Here I just skill 3 into Mort because I don't want him countering and doing stupid stuff, but I forgot he was immune to stuns, so that was a pretty big blame prey on my part. And now I'm not really sure what to do. I guess we'll just go ahead and attack Mort here and just try to kill him. Most of the targets on the enemy team are not super appealing. Going after Flurry or Mort's probably the best choice. Flurry is annoying to go after because she has a ton of self-healing, and she has GFA, defense buff, so she's going to be, proccing buffs to mitigate damage against her. So that's why I decided to go onto Mort. I figured it would also limit his Elbrus, procs, but he's just getting a bunch. So Mort is popping off. So the opponent goes into Arby, and I get a nice Dreamblade proc, so I have attack buff. Could have burned this, I guess, but I just kind of wanted to save the souls for Spectre Tenebria. Get another Dreamblade proc, so my Arby is popping off. But Fallen Cecilia does go down. My Tywin is fairly tanky, so I'm not super worried about them breaking through just yet. And my Arby does have some bulk as well, so I have some time. Their team is pretty low damage. And they're also, most of them are blinded now from the RBS3. So the opponent is going to Soulburn Blue Crow to try and take out my Tywin, and then I guess push him back. So he almost kills the Tywin, not quite though.
Prepare yourself.
The hit down buff, or debuff doing work there, so Mort is not able to finish the Tywin off. Flurry has her skill 3 again. She goes for the Arby, which I think is the right choice, considering Tywin is almost dead. So now I'm going to Soulburn my Spectre Tenebria, and try and take down somebody. So I'm going on Mort here. I was a little afraid at this point, just because I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish them off in time before they get to my Stenny. But I was also able to Soulburn my Tywin S3, stunning the Flurry. Only really got the speed down on Mort, I guess. I wanted to get this damage out now, with this Stenny Soulburn and the Tywin Soulburn, because my Arby is defense broken and will be dying soon, and so I kind of want to overlap all of that damage and just take somebody out.
All that's left is ruin.
My Arby does live, so he gets another skill 1 off, killing the Mort. So you can see the bulk is really paying off here. I'm getting lots of value out of him this match. So Flurry takes down Arby, he comes back. So now I get to skill 3 again. So now Crowd goes down, so now it's just Flurry and General Purgus against my Tywin, Arby, and Spectenny. Tywin is on Holy Sack, he has not died yet. So now he's dead, but he'll come back. Stronger than ever before. Not really. Stronger than he just was. He has a barrier now.
You want to try me?
So I've procced Dreamblade quite a bit this match, which is really nice when it happens. You get a lot more survivability and you do get that attack buff. So we go into Flurry there and the opponent concedes.
How about...
Okay, so enough of Degen Arby, let's see a game with Damage Arby. Here I do not have first turn. I pre-ban Fallen Cecilia because my intention is to blow the opponent up, and I do not want them to have mitigation to prevent that from happening. They do first pick the Fairy Tale Tenebria, which is a little bit awkward because she can be pretty fast, and she would totally disrupt my plans to cleave the opponent. I take Basar and General Purgus. My Basar is built fairly fast. He's like 280, 281 or so, and GP is just the standard like 220 build, I think. Like I said, my units are not necessarily set up for cleaving, so this could be better optimized. Like my Basar could be faster, and then my GP could be like 250, and I'd obviously be in a much better spot. So I'm kind of like using preseason just to try to get this in to illustrate a point rather than like a consistent strategy I would do in like a real season. So they take Aras and Spectre Tenebria. So I feel like I'm in a little bit of a pickle. Like I want to take Arby here to complete the cleave, so I do that, but I'm afraid I'm not going to get first turn. So I mean, honestly, Degen Arby might have been better here. I still have, you know, a few picks left, so I can contest first turn if I want to, though. So I take the Arby, and now I need to decide how I want to contest first turn. So I need to take some speedy units. You know, I could take like Falconer Clary, for example, because she'll almost certainly outspeed the Fairy Tale Tenebria and can lock her down and prevent F10 from doing anything. So I think I decided to go with that. And I still have another pick here to take another speed unit in case the opponent, you know, really pushes the speed issue. If I can get a turn with my Arby before the Spectenny goes, then I think I'm in a good spot. So the opponent takes Blood Moon Haste and a Cerise. So Cerise doesn't worry me here because even if she gets first turn, all my units are on immunity, so it doesn't matter. She can't stun anyone. And if she skill 3s, I don't really care about it too much, since I think I should naturally outspeed the rest of his team for the most part. So I take Tywin here to cleanse off the slow from the Cerise and also to give me a little bit of reach for the Spectenny. So my intent here is that my Flurry will outspeed. He bans the Tywin. So his Cerise does get the first turn, which I kind of expected. But again, everyone's on immunity here, so I just don't really care about her. She lands absolutely everything, which is just great for my opponent. I take a look at the skill bar here. Basar is at 96, and F10 is at 94. So I'm afraid that F10 will outspeed. I don't know if she will or not. My Basar does have speed down, so I kind of expected it to happen. So I soul burned my Clury, but Basar does outspeed, which was a little surprising. So he gets his S3 off, despite, you know, the souls used on Clury there. But that's okay. He pushed back, you know, for the most part, everyone he needed to. The opponent goes in with Ras into Arby and kills his first life, but Arby does get a turn and he gabs, which is all I really need. So the gab does quite a bit of damage, wipes out Fairy Tale, and almost kills everybody else, and now General Purgus is able to finish off the Spectre Tenebria. Arby comes back around and gabs again, and that's game. Okay, so I get second turn in this draft, so I pre-ban Tea Time Tenebria. I think she's a reasonable pre-ban if you are second pick, because you don't have a guarantee that you'll get Fallen Cecilia. And if the opponent pre-bans Fallen Cecilia and they have first pick, they could take the Tea Time. The opponent pre-banned General Purgus, which is sometimes a clue that they're trying to cleave you or go with an aggressive team. Not always, but the first pick Landy does kind of indicate that. Landy's usually picked like third or fourth if you're doing a Protect the One type comp. If you're taking her turn 1, I feel like you're going aggressive. So my considerations here are whether or not I want to speed contest and to what degree I want to tank down. I take Basar. He's built pretty quickly. He's above 280, so he's a semi-speed contester right there. So if the opponent doesn't take, a dedicated speed unit, I'm going to get first turn with him. He's also amazing against Landy. Then I take Fallen Cecilia because in the event that my opponent was just kind of doing a weird pick order and doing a Protect the One comp, I don't want him to have FCC. FCC also sets me up to tank down more if I need to later on in the draft. She has a AoE skill 3 to break Landy out of stealth, which is also useful. So I think that it's a fairly flexible pick in this scenario. It's times like this that I wish I had a second Fallen Cecilia who was built, kind of like a bruiser damage one, because I think that would be pretty sweet to kind of take people by surprise, if you're known as a tank player. So maybe that's a future video to come. The opponent goes deep into the tank and takes Adventurer Ross, which is an interesting pick. He's oftentimes put on Rise of the Monarch to give shields, presumably to Landy, and help her stay in stealth, and then takes Yuna. And I don't 100% know how Yuna's kit works. I think she has a team-wide attack buff and speed buff, I think. So getting double speed buff there with Yuna and Landy. I presume they're both on Guiding Light to protect them. So I have a few different options here. I think I'm in a good position since I already have the fastest unit on the board, and the opponent only has 2 more units that they can speed contest me with. So I can take another speed threat here, and it's going to be really hard for them to contest me. So I take Flitica because Flitica has an AoE. She can strip away, immunity and break them out of stealth. Also give a nice CR push to my team. And since my opponent has taken 2 squishy units here without any sort of CR push or speed contest, this kind of puts me in an opportunity to cleave the opponent. So this is kind of what I talked about, how taking Arby is a speed Arby, damage Arby is a pick of opportunity for me. I did not go into this draft thinking I'm going to cleave with Arby. I take T-Cern here because she has really good synergy with Fallen Cecilia and also really good synergy with my 2 previous picks. She's an AoE damage unit to kill these rangers who are going to try to hide in stealth and are squishy. And she also has buff block. So since I have 2 strip units, even if the opponent bans Basar, that means I'm still going to have Flitica and T-Cern. And so T-Cern's going to become, right behind the Flitica and put up buff block and prevent them from going back into stealth with Guiding Light. So my plan here is to take Arby last. In between him and T-Cern, if I get both or even just one of them, that should be enough damage to kill a squishy team. So the opponent takes Sage Ball and Ruel. I have an answer to Ruel already with Faithless Litica. My Flitica has a good amount of effectiveness. I think it's like over 150. So I'm fairly confident that I'll be able to reset the Ruel. And I also think that I have a must ban in Basar with the buff block. And Arby is also a huge threat for my opponent, so I'm fairly confident I can leave the Ruel in and just ban out the ball and not have to deal with him. He could seriously disrupt my plans. If he sleeps T-Cern, for example, and she goes to the back of the line, she could get picked off, by AoE damage, and I couldn't stop it. So the opponent bans the Basar, so now he's going to have to deal with Flitica resetting the Ruel, stripping off, immunity, etc. So the unit is not on Guiding Light, but the Landy is. You get a friendly wave from the opponent.
All that's left is ruin.
So we go ahead and give a friendly wave back. Unfortunately, we do not gab. Never lucky. But it does a decent amount of damage, and it does put blind on Yuna and Landy, which is really important. Here I can provoke her skill 3. I kind of wanted to save the skill 3. So I provoked the Yuna. I didn't want her giving attack buff to anyone. And then we go for the reset on Ruel, so if we get this, it's pretty much game. And we do. And T-Cern is up, Yabs. Alright, so at this point the opponent scoops. Okay, so that gives you an overview of how these two different builds perform. I am not a speed contest type player, so I don't often draft the speed Arby, in the example game I just showed you. That's not my typical style, but obviously people do it to great success, so it works really well. And I think even if you're not that type of player, there are still opportunities that show up where this type of build is really useful. Opportunities where the opponent is not speed contesting you, but also has kind of a squishy team. This speed Arby can really do a lot of damage and basically becomes a must ban for them. Likewise, I think having a bruiser Arby is also pretty viable. I've seen a few occasions now where having him be thicker has been really beneficial. So I think that there is value in having two. It's admittedly, I think, pretty marginal value. So I don't think that this is something that you should really focus on doing, even if you're going for legend. It's more of a for fun thing really than anything, but there is some value there. So let me know in the comments below if you have built two Arbys or if you've built two of another unit. I know there are a few in my head that I've been tossing around that I would kind of like to build a second one if I ever got the opportunity. Like for example, Spectenny, I think a second one could be really cool. For example, if you had one built really high damage for an aggressive type of team, and then another one, the standard bruiser build, I think could be really fun. Kind of similar to to Arby, where one's fast damage, one's slow thick. But let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Later.